You're watching DIYNate. If you enjoy this video, please consider subscribing. Don't forget to tell me about your project in the comments. Today on DIYNate, we're going to be talking about making a spray paint can rack out of a pallet. So I'm going to be chopping the pallet up into some ways that I'm going to stick it up against the wall, but I'm trying to keep it as true to its pallet form as I can, so it creates less work for me, but also it turns out to be a pretty cool spray paint can holder. I've also got a couple features I want to add to it, something where I can put some PVC pipe on the side to slide in caulk tubes. So I'll have caulk along the side, paint cans going up, and then the other part I'm going to add on it, I'm thinking about putting some jars at the bottom where you can tighten the jars in, kind of maybe have washers and nuts and bolts and some other stuff, screws and things like that, that would kind of make it good for little project finisher items that you usually don't have a great shelf for them. So we're gonna try it out, give it a shot. I've got a pallet ready to go that I've already taken the top off of it, and so now I'm ready to start putting the shelf into it. What I do need to make is I actually need some 4-inch, or we'll call it 3 7/8 supports that we're gonna use underneath the pallet shelf, because I'm pretty sure I can't drill right into the pallet wood. It's just too thin. So I need something that's a little bit thicker for the shelves to rest on. So you'll see what I'm talking about in just a minute here. For this part of the video, what I'm showing is a really long board here, probably we'll call it 12 feet. This board is basically, it's about 3/4 of an inch. So this is a piece of wood, 3/4 of an inch square. So you can kind of see that that's really the width of this thing. And so that's actually perfect for this kind of project. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut these into 3 7/8 inches little bars that we're gonna use as part of our shelving for this project. So I'm gonna bust this guy down into, I need 26 of them. So probably don't have enough just with this one piece, but I'm gonna get really far with it. We'll see how many I end up with. I could do the math, but instead I'll just take my chances and see how long I get. I do have a second one of these, so I feel pretty good that I'm ready to roll on that side. So you'll see me cutting this thing up in just a second here. So I've got my shoebox ready to roll. I'm gonna throw my parts in as I cut them into the shoebox, so I'll have it ready to go. Got my safety glasses on, got my miter saw ready to fire. Make this easy cuts, and I have a measurement of 3 7/8 right here, and so I'm ready to roll. Let's do it. First one down, that was easy. Let's just keep it moving. One of the pointers along the way, if I were doing this again, I would actually probably extend this more out to 6 inches for these braces instead of the 4 inches, just because it'll help give this shelf more support, and you can pull the shelf out a little further and help those spray paint cans really have a good place to rest. Alright, so now we got a box full of these little shelf parts. You can see right there. And just as an example of what I plan to do with these is each one of these guys will operate as a shelf brace on each side of the pallet. So these will have the piece of pallet wood sitting on top, and I will secure these. I needed these so I could anchor in from the side to give the pallet something to hold into. I don't think I could just tap in directly to that thin pallet wood without splitting the wood royally. So this will give me enough room to do that. Okay, for this part of the project, we're going to be cutting our pallet up here, and you can see basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the edges here and here. I'm going to leave a little bit of an overhang on the top and the bottom, about 1 inch on each side, because my slats are not quite 16 inches apart. And I know studs typically in a wall will be placed about 16 inches apart, or right on 16. So if I leave myself just a little bit of an overhang on the top and bottom, that'll give me the ability to anchor in the wall, because I know I might put some weight. It's not going to be light to begin with because pallets are pretty heavy. So as I do this, then I'm going to trim off these. This section is going to make the middle shelf sections. So I'm going to use this pallet wood in the middle here as the shelves for the section that I'm going to clean up here. So you'll get a full picture of that in just a second here. As I said, I'm going to leave just a little bit on the overhang over here. So I'm going to give myself about this much. shelf's gonna look like on the back side anyway. Right, kind of does. So that's stage one. We'll set this against the fence. All right, so now we're gonna take this end off. Run as clean against the side as we can. Get some platforms for you. Yeah, right here. You can have these little platforms. All right. So let's take a look over here, and you'll see how this is going to look. Here's the nature of what we're trying to do with these little pallet pieces here. They should slide in there nicely, and you can kind of see how they would fit at each level. There's just a little bit of give on each side, and that's actually what's nice about having those wooden piers to rest it on. So that'll actually work pretty well. You don't have to be flush against it, and so I've got a little bit of play. I'd love to have it a little more flush in there, but a little bit of play is going to be just fine for these. We're going to take these little screws, and I'm going to take a small wood screw, make sure I got enough size here, slowly, gently push it through. Hopefully I'll have some success with it. Once you get through, you poke it through that hole there, you'll be able to find your other pre-drilled hole. It holds in nicely, so tacking this one in, I've already pre-drilled it, at least one to see how it would work and hold in. And that's one in there. I'll flip to the other side. Again, what's going on there. That one's good to go. Working as expected. So now, we got that piece. So first shelf on, slides in right like that. And you can kind of see just how that's going to work. So you're going to just rest on top here. And you can kind of see how a spray paint can will line up on that on top of it. It's got enough room on each side to fit in there, but not so much it's going to move a lot on me. So we'll do a couple pre-drilled holes and go from there. During this part of the video, this is one of the key lessons I learned, and you'll see when I balanced the spray paint can here, I didn't give myself enough room on the shelf. So if I had been doing this again, I would have made those braces about 6 inches out, and I would have slid the shelf all the way out another maybe 2 inches off the back, and then pinned it in. So a lot of the work I'm going to do here, I'm going to come back and redo later in the project, but I wanted to share that pro tip with you so you don't think about doing it the same way I did and find yourself stuck in your project when you're a long way down the line. Okay, so right now I'm just marking the shelf height. I'm just using one piece of pallet wood here to give me the dimensions of each shelf and where I need to start with. And I'm going to put them each at a slight angle, each of the wood pieces that I'm going to use. So you'll see I've already marked the other side there. If I were doing this project again, I would have been much cleaner on using a ruler and maybe a triangle to get clean angles so that the shelves would be really well aligned and level when I hung them up. Okay, so I've got 7 items laid out here. I'm pre-drilling some holes in each one of them. As I mentioned earlier in the video, if I were doing this again, I probably would have made these braces 6 inches instead of around the 4 inches I have here. Now, we are going to take some of our wood screws here, and we're going to go ahead and pre-drill these as well while we're working right here. So I've got my driver. Try not to split my wood while I'm doing it. Don't need much to hold these tiny little supports in place. We're going to come over to this part. So each one of these is going to go in right where I marked it. I'm going to try and give myself a little room on the back so I can pivot it. Conceptually, the general idea here is each one of these will serve hold the shelf up. Line them all up like that, just like this one is set up there. So now I'm working on the second batch of the braces and really drilling the pilot holes, and then I'm coming behind it with the driver to go ahead and start the screws, so it makes it a lot easier when I go and tack those screws in. I found this to be a much more effective method than trying to tack it in on the side fresh.
Let me do this left-handed. That's okay. If we actually put them all in at angles, I'll just see what that looks like.
Right. So I'm going to try and give myself a little help. I take some of these boards and pre-drill them on the sides as well.
Push the edge here. Replace the edge here.
So with the shelves, I'm pre-drilling some holes here, so when I put the wood screws into the braces, it's got a good place to tack right in, and you got to be really careful with this type of wood. You don't want to split it, so pre-drilling the pilot holes makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so now we're setting these at a slight angle. Each one gets just up a little bit upward versus downward. Very careful not to split our wood.
In this part, I'm using a second screw to tack the brace into the rack, so that way when I lay the shelves across, you'll see how the paint can will rest against the back and also be tilted at an angle, so that really gravity is kind of holding the paint can in place. It does hang over the lip a little bit, and that gravity keeps it from falling off the edge.
Probably going to check my work along the way. Put a shelf or two in. Check and see what it's going to look like. Starting to feel all right.
As I'm building this out, the hardest part has actually been trying to level out the shelves. So you can see how I've got each one of the shelves I'm filling in. I'm having to kind of go back and remeasure each of the posts that I put in and make sure I'm getting a level shelf. So it's a little tedious on that front. You kind of get the idea. It's coming along nicely. Probably a good idea to test it with a can of spray paint here. Make sure that it's gonna hold up and do what we're looking for. And I'm gonna go upright with it here. And if we're holding it on a wall, you can kind of see how it's hanging out there. So it looks like it's gonna hold nicely. It's got enough of a lip that they're not just gonna fall off of there. And even if it were to fall off, you got a little bit of the catch there that it's probably gonna fall like that. So it feels good that it's gonna hang out and be up there nicely. Wait, I've been checking my measurements here using a level. Make sure I'm getting it just right, because the pallet wood is a little crooked. I'll take a flat piece of wood all the way across, and I'm gonna take my level here. We'll set the level on it. Just see how far off I am or how far on I'm at. I'm just off the shade there. Not terribly though. So yeah, that's actually a really lovely spot. So our next shelf here.
Here, can I? Right here.
So I found a good spot in my workshop. Can I go up high? The idea of being high so that if I need it, I'll just climb a ladder to get to it. Step stool. And also, the way I framed this thing to begin with, I think worked out pretty well. A couple screws along with some washers on there as well to give you a little bit of extra stability. Get around this stuff. All right, so I'm pretty happy with this spray paint can setup. I think this is gonna work out pretty good. Here comes Paige bringing in some cans. So we're gonna line them up here, check them out. So it holds nicely. Got all our cans right there. We'll line them all the way up top and should be in really good shape here. But yeah, that worked out pretty well for this. So after going ahead and putting these shelves up, what I noticed the first round was I would set a can up and it would hang and teeter on the edge and then it would kind of tilt down. So I realized I needed to pull the shelf out a little bit. So what I did, I actually left some backing here and I just pulled the shelves forward and put the screws in like that. So now it's got a lot more healthy lean to it. So it's not gonna be falling out of there. So basically all I'm doing is just moving these screws to the back edge here and then popping those in, and then I'll put it back in place. Probably a lot easier to do on the ground, but you know, I already had it attached, so I've just adjusted each one of those shelves so it would work like that. All right, here's where we are so far with our paint rack made out of a pallet. So it's coming along. As you can see here, I've got two pieces of PVC. One's a 2-inch. You can tell from this caulk tube size, when I take this one and just try to show you how it fits, we know a caulk tube will fit in that. Really want to make sure I give people the right size and dimensions here. So on this pipe, it says 4200 2-inch. It seems to be the exact right size for the caulk tubes. As you can see right here, caulk tube fits in perfectly. And that is about as good a fit as you'll get. So for this part, we're gonna make 5-inch marks all the way down the pipe. We're gonna see how many of these we need. I'm just giving myself marks so that I know if I'm at the 5-inch mark each time, then that'll tell me where I need to cut. I'm planning to use a miter saw just because it'll make the cutting really quick and easy. I'm assuming it'll cut through PVC no problem. I figure that's easier than using a hacksaw on this. I'm going to stick a hole here in the back at the 5-inch mark. I'm going to go very close as I can toward the back, and I'm going to go ahead and drill. And this big hole is supposed to be for me to be able to get my driver in and my bit into the back. So I need a hole on one side so I can get actually through to the other piece of PVC so that I can actually make it in here. So drilling right through the PVC, and it'll only go in through one spot. So that's what I got going on there. That'll open it up so that next I can actually take my driver, or my drill, and put a screw through there about 2/3 of the way through, and it'll give enough backing for the caulk tube to not slide through. So ultimately the caulk tube will slide to about right there. It'll butt up against that, and that'll be the backing for it. All right, so my first experiment worked with this. I actually have a screw in the back here that is actually halfway out, which is holding the caulk tube from sliding through. It would actually probably be okay if it slid through, but I kind of like the idea of having that screw in the back just to kind of keep it balanced. And then I've got a second screw where I've used another hole here, and I used a driver with a long bit. I needed the long bit to be able to get through
so I could actually come through all the way and use that driver to secure it, because you really need 2 spots through that. So 2 holes, 2 screws for the caulk tube. So that's what I'm lining up here. We'll see how it turns out. Checking, it's actually 1/2 inch and 1 3/4 inch. So that's what I'm going to do here. And that's pretty much the center of the drill hole. So we'll make a mark at 1/2, 1 3/4, and then the same here, 1/2 and 1 3/4.
So what you're seeing me do here, I'm actually measuring out the individual spots for the holes and then drilling the holes with a 1/2 inch drill bit. One of the pointers I learned along the way though is really I didn't need nearly as many holes. I really only needed 1 hole at about the 1/2 inch mark on the 5-inch pieces of PVC pipe, because the second hole was kind of overkill. At the bottom you do need 2 screws, but every other level will rest on top of the first one, so you're in pretty good shape if you just use the 1 hole on all the others.
Putting on my beautiful, lovely 19 or 90s Ray-Ban sunglasses here, and I'm going to try to trim it a little bit just so I can have more room to work with here. So. As you can see right here, I've got 2 different sizes. The sizes here, the large ones are going to be for the back, the smaller ones are for the front. So that's what I'm going to be using as we get them mounted. So I've got my driver and I've got a long extender here so that I can actually get through the entire piece of PVC and still have room to do the driver. These wood screws actually do a pretty good job of getting into the PVC without needing to drill a pilot hole. I'm going to go ahead and get this hole started just so I'm not doing it from an awkward angle. Let's see. So I can go get that one started. I'm going to take one of the smaller screws as well, get that started as well. You can even do this in your hand if you like, but probably not advised, but you know, it actually helps you kind of. So I've got the 2 screws in there, and now since I've got it in position, it'll be a lot easier for me since I'm having to switch left-handed. Makes it a little bit more awkward for me because it's not quite the angle I would normally use. But now that I've got what I need to here, see through it, and should be able to have no problem. I'm going about halfway in with the back screw, and we go all the way in with the top screw. And now that second tube is ready to go. That's a pretty easy one, and they're stacked back to back. I really like the stacking look. It's actually going to make it look pretty cool going up the side there. We're going to go ahead and pre-drill a couple of these. Makes it a little uncomfortable. A little too far in. Again, another one. Locked and loaded. So. So at this point, I'm going to switch to just doing one, because the reality is, if one of them is in position, then I'll be good to go. So, should have to work with. Good, exactly enough. I'm just giving myself enough of the starter of each of these. Well, the second hole actually is good to keep the back of the caulk sealed, but. So after doing my first round, I actually realized that I only really need 1 hole once you get the first one stuck in place, and you only need a screw that's going to go all the way through as long as you have a backer. So since I've got a backing, I don't really need to worry too much about it. And so now I've got my piece of set here. We'll hit the chop saw again, miter saw. right, so we're putting the last touch here. This one should be good to go. That looks pretty doggone good. I'm excited about this because now I have 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 tubes of caulk. Lucky 13 for me. And go ahead and start loading in some of these spray paint cans I spilled all over the floor earlier. So you can kind of start to see how I can line them all the way up.
So just when you thought that was all I was going to do to this thing, we're going to add some additional features here, including some underside nut and bolt storage or whatever you want to put under there. I'm going to put some plastic hanging jars from the bottom here. I like plastic just because if it's glass and it falls and it breaks, it shatters, and you got glass you got to clean up. So we're going to try and pop those in and see how this goes. Because no DIYNate project is ever done without something super useful and using some serious scraps, we're going to take a little machine screw here, and we're going to take a beer cap as part of our washer. Sam Adams beer cap right here. We're going to go ahead and put a hole in it using the driver to put that, pierce that first level of metal, hopefully. Shoot from the top here. There we go. The reason we're doing this, you can go the other direction actually, is this is going to act like a washer so that we can put that through plastic cap. So next up is our plastic cap. You'll see me taking Planter's peanut cap here. I'm going to also put that through, hopefully. We'll see how this goes. About splitting the plastic ideally. We are in there pretty good. And now this Planter's cap, I'm going to set right here at the edge so that I've got plenty of room to turn it, twist it, and all that good stuff. Now the Planter's cap is there. And let's check out how the peanut holder holds. Should go on nicely right there. So it works like a charm, just as I was hoping. So I'm gonna take a couple more bottles here. I've got a niacin bottle, some medicine I used to take, and we'll go ahead and put another beer cap on it. And another Sam Adams. Looks like Sam Adams was the choice from these days. It says cheers underneath. And we'll go ahead and... So over the next few seconds here, you'll see me attaching these plastic caps to the bottom of the pallet rack, basically using a screw and a beer cap and driving that up through the plastic cap into the pallet rack, basically giving me some extra storage for various miscellaneous bolts, washers, rubber bands, whatever else I might have in my workshop that just needs an extra place to keep it. So really cool hack in my opinion. You can see it goes on real easy here. So there we go. Not bad. So as you can see, this is the full setup here. We got the PVC pipes holding up the caulk, and then we've got the spray paint cans all made out of a pallet. Nothing had to be bought. This is all out of the workshop. Pretty easy craft. So a lot of fun. Okay, so now I'm really excited about how this has turned out. Got my spray paint cans lined up, got my extra containers at the bottom, lines of caulk running up the side, room for some extras. Still got some space for some other cans as well. And I feel like that is pretty awesome. So I'm excited about how the workshop project here turned out. Got plenty of room for my storage there, all hanging on the wall, all made out of a pallet, which is pretty cool. Pallet and a piece of PVC. So really cool. I'm excited to have that one in the books. All right, so giving you an updated shot here of how things turned out. You got the spray paint cans, the caulk on the side, lots of different cans. You got my great stuff at the very top, but you can really see how that whole thing turned out. I'll back up just a little bit here so you can get the full effect. You can kind of see, turned out pretty well. We got the little bolt holders on the bottom that work out, and really all things considered pretty happy. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you'd consider subscribing. I'd love to hear about your pallet shelving project in the comments as well. Thanks for watching DIYNate and have a great day.